Hey, loves. So I hope that you are having an amazing day. And I wanted to talk about one of the issues that I see so many women struggle with that often leads to problematic relationships, toxic relationships. So I don't know if you can relate to this, but I definitely had a period in my life where I was constantly attracting the same type of man over and over again, just a different face. So every relationship that I was in was problematic, and they all essentially ended for the same reason, for the same problems. And for me, that problem tended to be some form of abuse. So I have a history of having been in relationships that were verbally abusive, relationships that were emotionally abusive, and, I've dealt with sexual abuse as well. So for me, one of the things that, I had to recognize is that I was dealing with something that I was dealing with an issue that I had never dealt with in my non-romantic relationships. So when it comes to these problematic patterns, I come from a family where people have jokes, right? So it's not uncommon in my family for people to roast each other, to like make fun of each other, to make snide remarks, to be sarcastic. And to some extent, there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, when you grow up in a family where people constantly have negative things to say, where people constantly make snarky comments and they're like, oh, I'm just kidding. Oh, it's just a joke. Calm down. It's not that big of a deal. When you're dealing with that situation, you can carry that into other relationships and you can normalize that. You can normalize a situation that is actually really dysfunctional. So, in my case, I would get into relationships with men and they would make comments that were putting me down, right? And they would make these comments, and instead of seeing the relationship for what it was, that this person was being controlling, that this person was being manipulative, that this person was putting me down as an attempt to put down my self-worth and make me feel bad about myself, what I would do instead was constantly justify the relationship. Oh, he didn't really mean that. Oh, like, he was just joking. Oh, like, people make jokes all the time. People roast each other all the time. There's nothing wrong with this. And then I would get to a point where I would realize, like, no, this relationship is not okay. This is not someone who's making lighthearted jokes, um, and just trying to like make me laugh or something. This is someone who is being abusive. So I ended up going from one verbally abusive relationship to the next, not recognizing that the reason why I was doing this was because it was a pattern in my childhood, you know, because, don't get me wrong, my immediate family is great, but because I was seeing it so much in my extended family, um, I had normalized it. I thought that there was nothing wrong with people constantly coming for you, with people constantly having something to say about the things that you say and the things that you do. And because of that, when someone was mean to me, when I was in a relationship where a man wasn't being nice to me, I would always justify it. Like, he didn't really mean that, it's just a joke. And I would find myself in situations where I would get to the point in the relationship where I had entered the relationship on a high. I had entered the relationship full of confidence, full of self-worth. And then by the time I got to the end of the relationship, I didn't recognize myself anymore. You know, I didn't recognize this girl who had no confidence, who had no self-esteem. I didn't recognize this girl who was afraid to speak up. And anyone who knows me knows that I never have a problem with speaking my mind. Um, so I didn't recognize that girl. And I kept wondering, why was it in every single relationship I would leave the relationship feeling torn down. Why was it in every single relationship I would leave the relationship feeling like a part of me was gone? Because I didn't recognize that pattern. So when I started to recognize it and I saw it for what it was, and I saw that in my family, that yes, there are some people who are naturally sarcastic and like to make jokes, but there are also some people who were making these jokes and who were tearing people down, not because they were trying to be funny, but because they didn't love themselves. So they were dragging people down with them. And that's how I was getting into relationships with men who were dragging me down with them and their low self-esteem because it was normal to me. I had normalized that in my childhood. So this is what I want you to do. If you are in a relationship right now, or if you can think of your past relationship or past couple relationships, I want you to evaluate the things that did not go so well or are not going so well if you're currently in a relationship. I want you to evaluate the patterns that you've seen in your past relationships. How have you felt going into the relationship versus leaving the relationship? Have you been in situations like me where you went into a relationship confident and you ended the relationship feeling like you were less than or like you were less worthy? Evaluate the behaviors that cause these relationships to end. And then I want you to ask yourself, where have you seen this before? These patterns, the role in the relationship, like oftentimes relationships have certain roles where um, one person may be smarter, so one person's the teacher, the other person's the student, always eager to learn, or one person's the leader, one person's the follower. Sometimes you have codependent relationships where people, cling to each other and they don't leave the relationship because both people are afraid of what would happen if they were alone. Whatever the roles are, whatever the patterns that you're seeing, ask yourself, did you see these same patterns with your parents, with your siblings? Did you see these patterns with your extended family? Where have you seen this before? Because I don't care what the problem is, what the pattern is, all relationships are related. When a woman is running into bad patterns in her romantic relationships, then those same bad patterns are being perpetuated in her family relationships, in her relationships with coworkers, relationships with friends. They're all related. So I really want you to take that time today and to ask yourself, what are the things that you've seen in your past relationships that you don't want to repeat? And when did you first start seeing that pattern? Because I can guarantee you that you saw it long before you started dating. So, revelation about a problematic pattern in a relationship, let me know. And if you're at a point in your life where you realize that this is something that you really need to work on, that you need to break from some trauma bonds, from some soul ties, that you need to break from some generational curses in your family with bad relationships, with toxic relationships, and you think that now is the time to work with someone to break free from that and to have the confidence to build a healthy relationship, then reach out to me, send me a DM, and we can talk about what it would look like to work together. But I really want you to take that time today to look at the patterns and see what you can come up with. So I will talk to you soon. Thank you for listening, and I love you so much. Talk to you soon. Bye.